What's up guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to go over the resources you need to be using for step one and the exact resources that I use for step one as well. Now I made a list of many different resources a lot of people use out there, and I picked the best resources that will help you excel on your step one. Now I'll highlight the ones that I personally use and the ones I personally vouch for, but here's a list of the best of the best. And if you want to check out the list I'm using, you can go head over to the drjourney.com. It's under free resources, and if you want to go along with me on this document, you can go to the drjourney.com, go to the free resources, and it says free resource list. It'll have a bunch of other free resources, but the specific one I'm going over today is a free resource list. That's what we're going to be going over. So first off, we have Boards and Beyond. So Boards and Beyond is a great resource, super in-depth. I personally did not use it for step one. I thought it was way too detailed, but a lot of people do use it. It's got every detail you need to know and way more extra stuff in there for sure. But if you want to learn every single detail and you want to be prepared for everything, Boards and Beyonds is your friend. Next up, we got Pathoma. This is my personal favorite. I use this myself. It covers all of the pathology you need to know for step one, nothing more, nothing less. And pathology covers 60% of the exam. So technically, if you cover all of Pathoma and you know all of Pathoma, you're good to go. But you know, we're not going to know every detail, but the doctor who teaches Pathoma is so good. He goes over it such detail, just to the perfect amount of detail that you need. And if you're like me, who likes, you know, rushing through things, likes getting things done as fast as possible, Pathoma is going to be your best friend. They're short videos, 20-30 minutes at the max, and most of them go by super quick, and they have great information in them. Next video we have is Sketchy. Again, my personal vouching. I did this Sketchy Micro, Sketchy Farm. I think those are essential. I don't think there's anything on the market that can compete with that. You got to do these with the Anki, which we'll get into later, but the Sketchy Micro, Sketchy Farm, your best resources in terms of microbiology and pharmacology. And the next video set series that I have for you guys is Bootcamp. Now personally, I have actually no experience with Bootcamp, but I've talked to many friends and friends of friends and done my research. Bootcamp actually seems like a pretty legit resource. It's got video lectures where they quiz you right after the video lectures, and then they also have their question bank. It's basically like everything combined into one. I think it's a great resource in terms of what I know. I haven't used it myself, but if you're a proponent of Bootcamp, rest assured it helps so many people pass. So Bootcamp is a good resource. So let's move on to the next section on the document, supplemental videos. So supplemental videos are videos that I used in addition to the main videos we just talked about to learn specific content. Number one is Dirty Medicine's biochemistry series. These are like 32 videos, amazing, covers everything you need to know for biochem on step one. And again, if you're like me who forgot all of it from your first year in med school, go back, watch all those videos that are about 6 to 10 minutes long each. Super good. He gives you high yield concepts. He gives you acronyms to remember it. It's so good. You need to go watch it. Next supplemental video I have for you guys is the stats for step one. Now this guy goes over exactly what you need to know for step one. And I know I keep saying that over and over again, but he's so good. He has two parts. The part one is like 95% of what you're gonna need for stats. Part two is like 5% of what you're gonna need on step one, but really good videos. They're 30 minutes each. Go watch them. They'll cover everything you need to know for stats. Take notes because you're going to need to review those over and over again. I personally watched this video like 5-6 times over the course of the years. I just think it's super high yield. As a video itself, it covers probably the most per section. Like if there's a video dedicated to a section, this is the video that covers everything in that section, and that's stats. Next video I have for you guys to watch is an ethics video series, also by Dirty Medicine. Again, it's on the document. You can click the link and go find it. It's a really good video series. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's really good. It's the best I could find that I personally used, and I think it's enough to pass on step one with it. Let's move on to the next section, Anki. Anki, everyone talks about Anki. There's so many different ways to go about Anki, but I think there's only two actual ways to go about Anki that'll help you pass on step one. One of them being Anking, which I personally used and stopped using actually. I'll get into that. But Anking, it has like 40,000 cards. It covers everything on step 1 and all the detail. It's great, but I think there's another deck that most people would prefer, and that is Duke Deck. Duke Deck is the cards consist of around 6,000 to 7,000 cards, way less than Anking, and they cover the Pathoma material in Anki form. So basically it goes hand in hand with your Pathoma video series, and this is a good analogy. So how Boards and Beyonds and Pathoma, one is super detailed, one is just enough detail. It's exactly how Anking is. Anking is super detailed, Pathoma's Duke Deck is just enough detail. So again, if you're like me, need the high yield stuff, just want to go in and out, Duke Deck is for you. And for the sketchy decks, there's a couple sketchy decks out there. For Anking, it's the LOL Kopnik. I don't know how to pronounce it. Again, it's on the document, you can go find it. Or you can do the Pepper deck, which is also what other people use, but I think the LOL Kopnik one is better from reviews on Reddit, and that's the one I personally use as well, and it's an Anking. So use that one, add in the cards as you're watching the sketchy videos. If you watch like a Staff Aureus video, add in all the cards from that deck in Staff Aureus, and you'll be covering and remembering all of it, even up to your step 2 and 3 days. Moving on to the question banks. Now there's 2 question banks. Technically there's 3, we already covered the 3rd one, we'll go over that again, but the 2 question banks are UWorld and Amboss. UWorld is the one that everyone uses almost, and it's got everything you need to know for step 1, covers so much content, lots and thousands of questions. I personally loved UWorld. I did like 1.5 times over before my step 1, and it was more than enough to do well in step 1. Amboss, on the other hand, is also really good. In my opinion, it's not as good as UWorld, and I think most people out there also agree with that. Amboss is a little bit harder and a little bit more weirdly worded. It's good for those like tricky questions you might get on your actual exams or your practice tests, but most of the exam isn't as tricky as Amboss is, and it's a good source if you have access to both. I would say do UWorld primarily and a sprinkle a little bit of Amboss, but if you have to choose one, I gotta say UWorld is probably the best bet to go by. And the 3rd question bank we covered was Bootcamp. Again, I have no personal experience with this. Reviews have been great from friends and friends of friends and online research. I think it's a pretty good resource. It seems vetted. So if you have Bootcamp, don't be worried, you'll still pass. Next section we have is podcasts. So there are 2 podcasts that I think are really great. Now there's a multitude of podcasts out there for step 1, but the ones that I personally use and personally really liked, one of them is really popular, Golden Podcast. You can look up Daddy Golden Podcast on Spotify. You'll get his free series. I think he covers everything in just enough detail. He adds in a lot of humor, helps you remember stuff. I think it's a really good podcast. Watch that. It'll help you immensely. The second podcast I did was Crush Step 1 podcast. Now I listened to this in the car. It was pretty boring, to be honest. Covered good content, but I just couldn't pay attention. It was kind of boring for me. But again, Golden, Crush Step 1, they cover really good stuff. Golden, I gotta say, everyone should listen to. It's a great podcast with humor, and it just gets stuff stuck in your head, so it's a good one. All right, moving on to the last section, we have our practice tests. So we have the free 120. Now this is the exam made by NBME to exactly mimic how your test day is going to be, because it'll have the exact format, lab is going to be exactly where you need to be, exit button, break button, all of that is exactly how it's going to be on your actual test day, and the question style is very similar to test day as well. I would say this is probably the most accurate exam that you would take, and this one you should take basically right before your test, like a few days out or a week out. Take this as a final mark of how prepared you are for your test. Other tests, NBME exams, obviously take these are great. Now be warned, the format of NBME practice tests is not how your actual test would be. They're formatted very differently. Style of questions a little bit different too, but the content that's covered in NBME exams really prepares you for the actual deal. So take them seriously, take them time, take these tests, it'll prepare you really well. Next up we have UWorld exams. Now I personally took one of these for step 1 and I didn't like it. I thought they were way too hard compared to all the other stuff, but a lot of people vouch by it on Reddit. They said it's very accurate. If you like the UWorld style and you don't get demotivated if you get a low score on UWorld versus an NBME, then go take UWorld. It's extra practice. Why not? Extra content. It'll be good for you. And last up for practice exams, you got Amboss exams. I have no experience with this whatsoever. I think they're more newer than the other exams. So I would use this with caution. If you get a low score, don't worry. It's Amboss, they're harder. Get a high score. That's good. That means you know content. Just the style of question is going to be way different than everything else. So yeah, Amboss test exams, if you run out of other exams and you need to take exams, then yeah, go for it. But otherwise, I'd say stick with the NBMEs, add in UWorld exams if you can or want, and then save free 120 for last. That you must take. And there you go. That's our free resource document at thedoctorjourney.com. Just type it in, thedoctorjourney.com. No caps, no spaces, no nothing. Just get there. We have a lot of free resources. And if you're watching this at the time of release or a few days after release, we have a free Step 1 webinar by one of my friends who's a master tutor. He's tutored hundreds of students. He scored 270 plus on his Step 2. And we're giving back to the community. We're doing a free Step 1 webinar on July 13th, 6 p.m. PST. Be there, sign up on the website, thedoctorjourney.com, and we'll see you guys then. Bye. Stay healthy, stay happy.